Guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Let's stay on script. Oh, yes, we don't use one here. Fly by the seat of our pants. All right, so the picture on the left is actually showing an incorrect, wrong arrow length. If you go by these charts and you take them at face value, there's some information missing on these charts. Be careful because, hey, we can all get a little bit not so sharpest tool in the shed, if you know what I mean. We learn things as we go, and as much studying as I've done, watching videos like a junkie, forums like a junkie, picking the brains of other people too that I know. I gotta tell you, you can get really screwed up, but at the same time, you can also get really straightened out good too. And as long as I've been shooting bow and arrow, which has been like over 40 years, boy, I'm starting to feel old. Anyways, um, I can tell you this: I always shot the wrong way. I'm left hand dominant. I'm left eye dominant. I didn't know any better as a kid growing up. And even through the majority of my adulthood, I had these bows like they're called Indian bows. They're like red and they look like recurve bows or like a longbow kind of thing. And some of them are dual handed, left and right. Others are just like left handed or just right handed, whatever. But they're kitty cobblers. They're like 20, 30 pound draw. If you're lucky, you might get a 30 pounder, but otherwise 20 pounds about what I come across. So anyway, I got my first real, actual, authentic, real bow 11 years ago. It was a compound bow. It was a Martin Magnum Phantom. It's on my channel, left-handed version from my friend across the street, and he gave it to me. He's not hunting anymore, and he's like, well, I don't know, you want it? I know you like to shoot bows. Okay, cool. Anyways, so that was my first actual real bow, and left-handed at that. And we found out it was already set up for 28 inch, which is moi and him. Okay. It's like, sweet. Um, got it all checked over. Now, it was at 70 pounds. And believe me, I had a hard time hauling that puppy back at 70 pounds. It was like, oh yeah. I love that let off point, let me tell you. Anyways, but I got pretty good at shooting that sucker, I'll tell you. Um, but it did eventually have to go, unfortunately. Life happened. And so recently I got back into archery full swing with real bows again. I'm tired of these kitty cobbler things in my collection. Um, and so I got a PSE Nighthawk recurve bow, takedown style, known as a traditional bow. And then I picked up this PSE Stinger compound. And yeah, no traditional stuff there, I'll tell you. That's a whole new kind of rocket science with a compound, right? But I got it checked over thoroughly at the archery shop in Corbeil, and the string's good, everything's good, no problems. He even weight tested it for me to find out what it was set at, because I wanted this thing just in case I can't get good enough at traditional instinctive shooting by October for the turkey hunt. Okay, for fall turkey hunt. And I am considering deer. Should I do okay with turkey and gutting a turkey? Because a deer is a lot bigger animal. But if I figure if I can handle turkey, man, I can do anything. So we'll see. But this is kind of like my backup choice at the same time of if I cannot get accurate enough with my recurve, once my proper arrows come in with the 40-pound limbs and get to use on those, um, then this is my backup. So I've been spending some time sighting it in, but I also wanted a compound for that. So I bought the compound. And everything's fine with the bow. Nothing wrong with it. It's perfect. But our arrow lengths were really bad, like 26 and 3/4, 27 and a half, 27 and 3/4. And it's like, that's a bit of a mixture of arrows in that box. Like, was this guy trying to friggin' tune these things or something? Like, I don't know, because usually with bare shaft tuning, your arrows aren't all going to be exactly the same length. They're going to have some obvious differences, right, to get them to fly like a laser bullet. I don't believe in bare shaft tuning, but we'll talk about that in another specific video geared to that and what I really think and what I know about it. Anyways, so the arrow that's on the left picture here was custom Alakevi. Okay, that was my bad. So I followed this chart going by, oh, okay, so we have an arrow. I have a 28-inch draw. So I assumed I needed a 28-inch arrow because they say the measurement of the throat of the nock, okay, to the end of the point should be 28 inches. And I took that as a 28-inch draw. They don't put draw lengths on here. This is the only problem. They have weight and they have an arrow length, but they don't talk about your draw length. Okay, so I figured maybe it's draw length, right? I'm an idiot. What the hell? Let's try this. This arrow from the throat of the nock, okay, to the tip without a tip on it, okay, so the tip of the actual physical arrow with no field tip or broadhead is precisely 28 inches. And I did all three of these the same. Man, I was stupid. Anyway, hey, I had to cut the stuff off and recover the friggin' inserts and re-glue stuff back in. You get the idea. Carbon fiber arrows, man. Trust me. You're going to do some damage. Anyway, these were pretty long arrows, so at least I got lucky enough. But, so every arrow is exactly precisely the same. So every single one of these three arrows that you see of the one arrow here, at least in the picture, that broadhead will be in the exact same place, and so will that arrow behind the riser. And that is dangerous. Okay? Everything I have found on YouTube even says that's dangerous. Now, I have found some stuff on YouTube that says that's perfectly fine, but I would not trust those guys as far as I can throw them, because even professional archery places have said that's dangerous. So, let's go to this side. So I went to the archery place, as it's called. It's the name of the business in Corbeil. And, of course, like I said, he checked out my bow. The bow is fine. We just had all these odd length arrows, right? And so we even checked with a broadhead after, and obviously this is with a broadhead. So now we have a proper length arrow. You want to guess the length of this arrow from the inside nock to the very tip here without the broadhead or field point on it? It's 28.5 inches. Okay, this is safe. The arrow flies dead straight, no issues. Okay, as long as there is no freaking wind out, it will. Or if you shoot it indoors, she flies and hits straight, no problem there. But if there's wind or you jerk the bow in any way, you're gonna have problems with any arrow. This is another reason I think we need to talk about bare shaft tuning, because there's a lot of variables here that you're not being accounted for. Anyways, so the arrow flies straight and true, and the arrow has got more than enough past the riser, just the arrow itself, that even with adding the tip on there, my hand is no longer in danger, okay? Nor is anything else in danger of going wrong. Now, if this is 28 to here, okay, right to this insert, to the nock, can you imagine the arrows that I had given to me with this bow that were with the original owner when he pawned this bow? 28, so 27 3/4 would put us somewhere around here, which means this is going to be even that much closer. 26.5 is going to put us more about probably somewhere back here. Are you seeing the problem here? Okay. I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I didn't try shooting this damn thing before I took it to the archery place, because, man, I would have really had something bad happen. I'm probably sure. So anyways, the chart you've got to be careful of. Now, I'm in full agreement with what they say is an average, like 500 spined arrow, okay, for example, 41 to 45 pounds, 500 spined arrow. I was at 46 pounds, but we can also go 48 to 50 range, 41 to 45. I'm using 100 to 125 grain tips, so I need to be in this aisle for the tip weight that I'm using, the grain weight, and then I go from there to the corresponding 28-inch arrow, which I assumed the arrow length and your draw length were the same, and they actually aren't, because this here in picture on the left proves that they are not. My bow is set at 28 inches for the draw length. Okay, that arrow, I made it to 28 inches exactly as instructed down below. Okay, and every bit of information I found on the internet always says it's from the throat of the nock, where the string actually stops, that's your throat, okay, to the tip. Now, when the other people talk about the tips, they are not including anything screwed on. They're just including to the tip of the arrow, okay? This thing here says to the end of point. Well, there's a big difference between a tip and a point, okay? So if I were to go by the length of the tip I had on there, or the point, the length of the point being the broadhead, which is far longer than what a field tip generally is, or general field tips at the same 125 grain, that would have made things even far scarier, okay? Because that would mean that the arrow would be even shorter, and yeah, oh man, there's just so much stupidity here. So be careful with these charts. Keep in mind these charts do specify an arrow length, but they don't talk about your draw length. And your draw length and the arrow length your bow requires for that arrow with a tip to get past the riser for the amount that it should be past are completely different. These charts do not account for that information. So I would say, yeah, they made a great attempt at it. The only thing I would say that would be considerable to really think about the most is, okay, if you technically have an arrow that's about between 28 and 29 inches, okay, between that, I would say, pay more attention to the 28 side, obviously, and look at the poundage to the grain weight of head you're going to use, okay, because when you use a heavier head, you actually need less draw weight, okay, so 250 grain weight here is, say, 38 to 40 pound draw, and at 28 inches, that means it's a 400 spined arrow. Okay, now if we increase our draw weight to 51 to 55, then we should actually go with a lighter tip, 1 to 125, and still be able to stick with the same thing, because all of these weight ratios here come across and they balance out to whatever the length of the arrow actually is. Okay, they don't take into account half lengths, like half-inch markers. So if your arrow in the end, like mine, to be proper, from nock to the front without a tip screwed in, needs to be 28 and a half to be safe, or it should technically be anyway, okay, then you go to the 28 here. But your draw length would also be a 28-inch draw, but your arrow needs to be 28 and a half inches long, because if your draw length is 28 inches and you cut to 28 inches, you end up with the mess on the left side, which is extremely dangerous. So this is where adding that extra half to 3/4 of an inch, even 1 full extra inch, is fine, but much more than that, your arrow is probably not going to fly straight, okay? You're going to probably have some problems with that arrow, because if your arrow is too long for the draw length of the bow and the poundage behind it, even though if the spine is correct, it's likely not going to fly right if the arrow is too long. So there is a such thing as having too long of an arrow and too short of an arrow, okay? This is our happy place where everything's happy. This is our starting of depression, and this is when we really have some issues to resolve in life and get straightened out, because we really need to do a lot more studying if we have garbage like this going on, which is exactly what would be going on with the 4 arrows that came with that bow. They were all way too short, and they would have all been within this area behind the riser, where my little cut job, it's not even in front of the riser, because the riser ends at the very most peaked point. So if you look at my riser here, where the point is, that is the end of the riser. You have to be X amount of space past that. At the minimum, there's the minimum length, okay? So which in this case we got pretty much about a half an inch past. Okay, and we're golden there. And then we put our tip on, and then we're even further past, because now we increased from here, from the tip to here, and that's pretty much a really good inch, maybe an inch and an eighth, and we're safe. So we're all good. And I could still go another half inch longer if I wanted to. Wouldn't have that much ill effect on the arrow, if any at all. So hard to know without actually cutting one like that. Maybe I'll get him to cut me one that's like 29 inches, and then we'll see what happens, and see how fly it actually straight, see how much effect it is on the exact brand arrow with the same spine and same fletches, and we'll just see how it goes, you know. So maybe we'll pull an experiment for you guys for that. But anyways, other than that, I just wanted to point out the right thing and the wrong thing for the lengths. Talk a little bit about the charts. Just be careful with them. That's the big thing. And don't run too stiff a spine or too weak of a spine. You know, like I have 700 spined arrows, for example, that came with my recurve. They're perfect for the 20-pound limbs, and I'm getting really good at hitting, you know, into the center area and bullseye with that bow with those particular spined arrows. But when I try and use the same arrows with my 40-pound limbs on the same bow, well, best of luck hitting the broadside of a barn. If I'm lucky, I might get the bullseye once, but everything else is scattered all over the place because, well, they're just a little bit too wussy for the bow. I need a stiffer spine, which is what I ordered, and they should be in by the end of the week. They finally went across customs last night, actually for both bows. The arrows I ordered for both bows went through, so I should have the one set at least by Friday, maybe both. Who knows? We'll see what happens. You'll know when they come in anyway, because we're going to test them out and see how they do. So there you go. That's pretty much about what I got for you on this one. I want to do a specific video though geared toward what I do know and understand about the bear tuning that they call it, and just let you know what I really think about it and what I've seen for result differences myself across a multitude of channels, and I think we really need to discuss that subject. It does hold some idealist merit to it, but it also is a very flawed system at the same time, and we're going to point that out. So stay tuned for more, and we'll catch you on the next one. See ya.